Hi, everyone.
Hello. We're on page 292 of In Search of Christian Freedom by Ray Franz. He's talking about the risks, both of taking blood and not taking blood. The risk inherent in transfusion of blood and blood components or fractions is real. At the same time, it is also true that people can die in surgery due to massive hemorrhaging. The use of one's own blood, stored until time of surgery, would logically appeal to persons concerned about the possibility of blood-related infections. Yet, as has been seen, the organization assumes the authority to declare this outside the realm of personal decision, prohibiting even the what they call intraoperative collection of blood, where during the surgery some blood is drawn off into a plastic container and later returned to the body. And many thousands of persons are willing to relinquish the right to make their own decision in such crucial matters, allowing an organization to decide for them, even though its history is one of unwillingness to acknowledge its responsibility for damage that its policies may produce. Fed almost entirely only those statements and experiences that are favorable, they are rarely, if ever, told of negative factors.
Consider just one example. Taken from an article in Discover magazine of August 1988. Beginning at age 42, a witness woman had had surgical removal of recurring bladder tumors over a period of several years. This last time she had waited overly long to see her doctor, was bleeding heavily, and was severely anemic. She insisted that she was not to receive a transfusion, and this refusal was respected. Over a period of a week, urologists tried unsuccessfully to stem the bleeding. Her blood count continued to drop. The doctor writing the article described what took place. Quote, "Gradually, as her blood count dropped further, Ms. Peyton became short of breath. The body's organs need a certain amount of oxygen to function. That oxygen is carried from the lungs to the periphery by hemoglobin molecules in red cells. The medical team gave Miss Peyton supplemental oxygen through a mask until she was breathing virtually pure O2. The few red cells she had were fully loaded, but there weren't enough vehicles left to transport the fuel her body needed. Her hunger for air increased. Her respiratory rate climbed. She became more and more groggy, and finally, inevitably, the muscle fibers of her heart declared their desperate need for oxygen. She developed crushing, severe chest pain."
The doctor writing the article relates her feelings on arriving at the patient's room. Quote, "As I walked into the room, I was awed by the scene in front of me. At the center of everyone's attention was a large woman with an oxygen mask, gasping for air, breathing faster than seemed humanly possible. At the head of the bed were three friends, fellow members of the witness community, coaching her. At her side were several doctors, one monitoring her falling blood pressure, another coaxing some blood from an artery. The fluid that slowly filled the syringe had the consistency of Hawaiian punch. Tests on the same revealed a red cell count of only 9. Normal would have been 40. Hanging from the bed rail was a bag of cherry red urine. The woman was dying. Her cardiogram tracing showed the deep valleys that signal a heart in pain. Within a matter of hours, the damage they represented would become irreversible. The woman went into cardiac arrest. A team of doctors and nurses began cardiopulmonary resuscitation, administering epinephrine, I think it's pronounced, and atropine, then an electrical jolt to the heart. It fluttered into activity, then stopped again. More CPR, more epinephrine and atropine, another electrical jolt, more CPR. This went on for 1 hour until there was no longer any hope or purpose. The patient was dead beyond recovery."
The physician describing this did not characterize the woman as simply a fanatic. She writes, Quote, "She was an intelligent woman," I was told, "who totally understood the implications of her decision. But her judgment, it seemed to me, arose from a blind spot imposed by her faith." Here was a woman who had a reoccurring problem requiring periodic surgery. Knowing this, storing some of her own blood might have appealed to her as a safe, advisable procedure. Theocratic law, however, ruled this out. Obedience to theocratic law left her no personal choice in the matter.
If the organizational policies were truly biblically based, then whatever suffering that might result from adhering to those policies, such as a damaging postponement of or avoidance of surgery due to concern for uncertainty about blood issues, even actual loss of life because of feeling under divine obligation to reject any but the permitted blood components, all could be viewed as simply the suffering a servant of God must be willing to face. Many of Jehovah's Witnesses are very sincere in holding to the standards of their organization in this regard. Some have even seen their young children die as a result, and it would be cruelly unjust to imply that this is due to any lack of parental love on their part. They simply have accepted that the organizational standards and policies, however complex or even confusing, are biblically founded and hence God-ordained. Yet few claims were ever more weakly based.
There's a footnote at the end of this page as well about an experience of Ray and his wife. Ray says, "My wife nearly bled to death in 1970 when her platelet count dropped from the normal rate of 200,000 to 400,000 per cubic millimeter down to about 15,000 per cubic millimeter. After days of severe hemorrhaging, she was hospitalized at a Brooklyn hospital, and both she and I made clear our rejection of platelets or any other blood-derived products, including those that have since been organizationally decreed allowable. Fortunately, after a 2-week stay and continuing therapy, she recovered basic health. What I state in this book, then, is not evidence of any personal reluctance to face loss if I believed that adherence to God's will called for it."
In the next segment, Ray deals with the supposed Bible basis for this blood prohibition.
Mm.